I usually walk around the front of my truck and kick the bumper, and then
snap a wing.
Right. Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of our Camber Up podcast, where we chat all things related to RC sailplanes with prominent pilots, designers, event organizers, and other awesome guests. So Camber Up is now available in several different forms.
So why am I?
I don't know which you would fall under.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's not me, and that's not me, and that's not me. All right. Hey, good night.
So we're available in several different formats, so you can tune in however you want. We'll continue to have these full-length video podcasts available on our YouTube channel, Armsor. And it's also available as full-length audio podcasts through Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so you can listen to it when you're at the gym, riding your bike, or driving to work. Just search for Camber Up. And for those who don't have time to listen to a full podcast, check out our Camber Up Clips playlist on YouTube, where we upload clips from the previous week's podcast, organized and titled by topic for easy searching and consumption. So today we have Gavin Trussell back with us.
Truffles.
So today,
Truffle pig. He can sniff them out like a truffle.
So today we have Gavin Trussell back with us in the episode of Camber Up. Welcome back, Gavin.
Round 2.
Hey, so we've gotten a couple of questions from people in the audience. So why don't we start off today's episode by answering a couple of these? I have 2 good ones from Paul G. So let's start with the first one. Can you give any advice for landing on turf?
Like landing on grass? Well, rule number 1 is always land into the wind if you can, because it allows your plane to fly slower, and it also there's a point at which a plane is flying downwind, and if it's flying too slow at the same rate that the wind is going, the plane, even though it's moving, is stalled, and you'll have a horrible landing. Or you have a chance to, if you land crosswind, you have a chance to flip a wing up. I would say try landing into the wind so it doesn't come in with a lot of speed and slide down. Now, if you're in a contest, you want it to land right next to you. But I would just land it into the wind. I would say that would be your safest bet until you learn how to catch it. And once you learn how to catch it, you'll catch everything. I even catch 5J planes because I hate my planes touching the ground, but it's part of life.
Yeah. So the second one, how do you manage low altitude 180-degree downwind turns?
Oh, well, okay. So that's kind of like, we kind of just discussed that. So you're coming in and you're downwind, but you need to turn back towards yourself or turn downwind, back into upwind, but you're low. So the hardest thing as a new pilot to learn how to do is push the nose down in scary situations. But the only way to gain airspeed is to push the nose down. The oldest thing is you have to trade altitude for speed with a glider. So you have to be confident enough to be like, okay, I'm low, and the only way I'm going to get any speed, the last thing I want to do is fly the same speed as the wind. We just discussed that. So shove the nose down, try to keep the wings level and rudder that baby around and get the rear end of the plane spun around as fast as you can without dipping a wing too low and letting the wind catch things. So you have to be going faster than the wind, and you have to manage, your wing, and you have to learn how to fly your rudders.
In addition to that, I would say, try not to get into that situation. Try to recognize that, hey, at this height, it's already too low. So if you need to turn back, come back maybe 5 seconds earlier, 10 seconds earlier. Mm-hmm. And sometimes if it's really too low and you're not confident in turning it around back to upwind, I would say it's probably safer to just land with the wind, but straight with the wind. Don't try to, if you're not confident about it, don't try to force it, because that's when accidents happen.
The other thing I wouldn't do is I wouldn't use your flaps going downwind low, because you're going to slow the plane down and you're going to stall. So it's all about not stalling the plane. And people are like, well, my plane is going forward, so how is it stalling? Well, if the plane is going the same speed as the wind going with it, no air is going over the airfoil. So the plane isn't actually a plane anymore. It's just a manhole cover. So it's going to fall. Right. You're going to stall and you have a chance of breaking it. The only time, and I still land, I hate to say this on video, but I still land downwind. There are times when I get in trouble in 5J, and we'll talk about that later, where you have to come in. And 5J is different than 3K. You can land in any direction you want at the tape. Stalling a plane in wind is, you can do it at any altitude, at any place. And the lower you do a stall, flying the same speed as the wind that you're flying in, the more dangerous it is, because the plane's just going to fall. It's no longer a plane anymore. It's just a piece of weight. And so your surfaces won't work. You know, you could get into a panic situation. So I would say trying, like Thomas said, don't put yourself in that situation. And we all still do. I mean,
we still do, you know, it's just to be aware of. And yeah, you mentioned, you know, just be aware of the difference between airspeed and ground speed, because, you know, the plane doesn't know what's happening with the ground. It only has the air as reference. So you have to get into that mindset as well. All right. So before we continue with today's episode, if you enjoyed today's episode and want to see more content like this, remember to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. It helps our channel grow and gives us motivation to keep making great videos for you guys. If you guys have questions, please be sure to leave a comment and we'll tackle it in the future video. Okay. So F3K and F5J events, you know, they're extremely popular right now. I would even say F5J seems to be a bit more popular than F3K right now. And there's quite a bit of cross-discipline flying between the two. There's a lot of pilots who used to fly either 3J or 3K who are going into 5J right now. So let's break down to two events in terms of skill sets needed to succeed. All right. So what would you say are the most important skills to do well in an F3K event?
Well, F3K, I would say, man, that's a difficult question. The skill set, you know, when I first started F3K, I taught myself how to launch really high. That was the thing I wanted to do. I wanted to never step on a field and have anybody out launch me. I said, you know, and I'm going to work on it. And it took a long time. And there were some things that I did to improve my spin and how my structure, you know, there's a step process to how I go through a launch. And then after that, I wasn't a good pilot, but I was a high launcher, really high launcher, but I wasn't a good pilot. And then
you're still not a very good pilot. Well,
probably not. But, you know, I don't have to be a good pilot when I launch 60 meters higher than you. So, you know, no, but, you know, so I would work on what skills do you need? Well, you need to be able to thermal, and you need to have to succeed. You need to fly a lot. You just can't go out. You can tell there's like three groups of guys at a F3K event. There's guys that are really hardcore dedicated, and you know who those guys are because their gear, everything is sorted out. It's all in check. Their planes are built meticulously. They're very precise on how they fly and how they practice, and they stand out. And then you've got the middle ground pilots that they practice once in a while. Their gear is pretty good. And then you have the guys that just fly, you know, from event to event. They don't practice in between. They just come to have a great time. And that's fine too. It doesn't matter which one you are as long as you come and have a good time. But I would say the more to succeed, practice. That's it. Just practice. And we'll talk about practice in a little bit, but practice is probably the number one thing to success. And I can't stress that enough because there's a couple instances where I've known guys that have practiced and they never wanted to fly their good plane. They only practiced with their practice plane. And then they would get out on the field and they'd fly their good plane, which was a totally different plane. It wasn't even the same make or model. And they were horrible. And I knew they were a better pilot. And I'm like, why don't you go get your practice plane and fly that in a contest? And they're like, no, I saved this plane. So, and what had happened is they got so good with their practice plane and knew exactly what it did, but their pretty plane that they never flew, they didn't know how to fly it. And so I would say, like, practice with what you fly in the contest, you know, and practice heavy.
Now, I would like to add something to that. I would say, in addition to launching high and thermaling, you have to have very good time management skills, because the whole name of the game, the way for you to get points is managing your time. You can thermal very, very well, but if you can't manage your time coming back to the field and controlling how many seconds you drop after the max, you're not going to do very well at the contest.
Right.
So time management, we'll go in a little bit into practicing later, but I would say that's probably the third most important skill set to have for F3K.
Yeah, and understanding, that's a really good, and going along with what Thomas just said, I would say understanding how F3K works, understanding each task and how it works, because there are some tricks to a few tasks to shave off seconds, and there are some tricks to a couple of the tasks to make it easier on yourself. And there was a couple of pilots that taught me this way back, and I'll mention them later because they need a shout out, that I was just like, wow, I never thought of that. Like, that is really, really smart. And so, and it's kind of, it helps you. It's something that the new pilots wouldn't think of, but once you hear it, you're like, wow, why haven't I done that the whole time? I don't know why I didn't think of that. But yeah, I would say time management is a huge one, huge. And knowing with that, knowing what your plane and what your skill set is capable of. And all these planes are better than we are. There's the plane's performance is far better than what we can fly them at. So, but knowing how good you are and how much risk to take on how far you're going to go downwind or go over the trees or anything like that is part of that time management. And I think that's a really good advice you gave, Thomas.
Now let's talk about F5J a little bit. So in terms of skill sets, what do you think can translate over from 3K? And are there anything extra that's needed in 5J that is not there for 3K?
You know, I think the best 5J pilots are 3K pilots, honestly. The 5J, that's my opinion, and I can back it up. But when I fly thermal duration with guys that have been flying thermal duration forever, they're always looking up. You know, they're looking up at the clouds. They're looking, and they're never looking at ground signs. They're never feeling the air blow across their legs, you know, and they're never like looking at low bushes and trees. And like, you ever stood in a wheat field and watched the thermal go across the wheat? Like, you can just see it. I mean, you can just see the grass shimmer as the thermal tears through it. And thermal duration guys, very few of them. And there are the great studs out there that know how to do everything. But most of the guys I fly with, they don't pay attention to that. They're always looking up. And so I think F3K has an advantage because, you know, we start our thought process below 200 feet, basically. You know, some guys can launch, you know, much higher than 200 feet, but I would say 200 feet for the average pilot is that's where you're starting at. You're starting at 200 feet, and thermal duration guys start at 600 feet. That's a big difference in air, and they fly much bigger planes that have much longer span of, you know, they have 6 minutes of dead air time. We don't. We have like 45 seconds to make a decision, or that plane's on the ground. So I would say, you know, having low level air reading skills from F3K will benefit you the most in F5J by far.
That's because, you know, F5J, the higher you launch, you know, the more you're penalized. So you have a huge incentive to launch low.
The other thing that makes an F3K pilot great at F5J is the timing. An F3K pilot is constantly flying his plane at himself and on a clock. And, you know, in one round, you could be flying at yourself 5 times. And so in your head, you know the distance and how long the plane takes to get to you. You become very accustomed to the plane's 40 meters out. It's going to be at me in, you know, 2 seconds. I need to drop off a second so I can, you know, do a fast turnaround. There is no difference in that than you coming into a landing on an F5J plane. So the timing, your timing is much more in tune than I would say a normal, you know, TD pilot or something like that, just because the reps you're doing in F3K are far greater than anyone else. You know, you're practicing for 5J when you fly 3K and you don't even know it, but you've been practicing for 5J your whole life, flying 3K.
Now, I haven't flown 5J yet. That's something I want to get into later this year. But I've heard.
I don't even know what to say about that. So pathetic. Just pathetic.
My wife already calls me that every night, so that's fine.
Oh, that's not because you're flying. Anyways, that's a different
Back to
podcast.
The show. Yep. That's a different podcast. I'm hearing people tell me that, you know, in 3K, even though we are flying to ourselves and we are hand catching it, it's actually easier than flying it to the tape because you can't adjust yourself to meet the model. Is that true?
it is true to a point of a point, but the planes in 5J have become so good, and the flap systems on them so powerful that the planes can fly at a very slow rate of speed because they're so light and so big that you can adjust the timing of your landing, and you can shave off seconds or gain speed quickly because the planes are just so good. So I wouldn't say that's you can't adjust your body because you're flying to the tape, but you can compensate for it for the plane's ability to slow down and still fly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Now, one of the other important skills in F5J, or I would say that's not present in F3K, is because there is an electric motor run, and there's a lot of strategy that's probably involved in how you do your motor run, because you can go far out to a thermal at high speed. You can loiter at a lower level until the last 10 seconds. If you don't hit anything, then you burst up to as high as you can go. So that's another skill set that I don't see in F3K because it's totally independent to F5J.
Right. That was something I had to learn too. When I first started, I was horrible at F5J because I just wanted to. I would think I would read air and then I'd blast out to it, and I would go higher than I needed to go. And now I'm constantly going lower than I need to go and penalizing myself for it. You know, think of 5J as a poker. Every round is poker. And so, and you just put yourself in a bad situation and it just gets worse from there. And you got to dig out of the hole at almost every round at the very competitive level. But I love 5J because it allows everybody, no matter the skill set, to compete on an even level, because the top guys will try to go low and they will burn themselves at the stake. And then the middle guys are going to be like, I'm not going under 100 meters, and they will go higher. And you will see that most of them will be in front of a lot of the good guys because the good guys have already taken themselves out of the competition because they've tried to go too low. So the strategy in 5J is just unbelievable. It's really, really a fun thing because you've got to keep your head in it or you're out. I mean, it is cutthroat. If you and the funny thing about it is you can never blame anybody. It's always yourself. You just look in the mirror and be like, you're the dumb one. That's why you didn't win. So I mean, it happens all the time. You can talk to any 5J pilot and they can tell you about the contest they should have won or could have won, but didn't because they did something stupid. And it's usually going too low. So in 5J, I'll just talk about in 5J, my strategy, how I look at it 5J is the problem with me is I always think that I can get out lower than anybody else. And then there gets to be that kind of like, you know, pound your chest, you know, I got out from 15 or I got out from 20 meters is what we're talking about. And for people that don't know what that means is when the whistle goes, you throw your plane, the motor's on, and then you have 30 seconds to decide how high you're going to go before you turn the motor off or the motor turns off automatically in 30 seconds, one or the other. And at that point, 10 seconds after that, the device in your plane will record the altitude, the highest altitude achieved in that 30 seconds. So if you go to 200 meters and come back down to 100 meters and then the motor turns off, it's still going to record 200 meters because it's the highest altitude achieved in that 30 seconds. So you have to remember that. So my thought process is first, I always go out the round before I'm going to fly, and I look at what's going on. I see so many, and I'll just call them stupid pilots, sitting in the tents, not paying attention. They walk out and they're like, what's going on? Well, it's too late. You should have come out and seen. So go out and look right before you're going to go out and fly and see what's going on. Count how long the cycles are. Like, hey, it's been about 6 minutes since the last big thermal came through. And so hopefully there'll be another one at 6 minutes, and hopefully it'll be right where that one was, or, you know, whatever, or do whatever you do for air reading. And then, you know, feel at, you know, look at the averages. Averages are a big thing in F5J. Look at the averages, and everybody's seemed to be making time at 80 meters or 50 meters or whatever, or maybe it's the air is shut off and it's horrible. And you're like, I know my plane can make 10 minutes in dead air at 155 meters. And I kind of know what that looks like. So I'm going to launch to like 160, play it safe, make my time. If I take a little bit of beating and someone gets out lower, fine. But you're still going to make your time. But don't go out there off the bat and try to be a hero and try to do things like, 10 meters like I do. And next thing you know, you're not in the flaps. Stop laughing. But
I didn't say anything.
It looked like you put your cup up in your face so you could laugh. So, yeah, that's what that would be the difference between 5J and 3K. 3K, you have a lot more forgiving. You know, in 3K, you have a lot of tasks where you can screw up one of the flights, but you still can get like a 700 or something. Like if you dropped one, you're still going to get a 700. But in 5J, man, if you
would you say 5J is a lot more competitive than 3K?
I would. I absolutely would. And the reason is because it doesn't take athleticism or somebody that can launch really high to be really good. There's some old guys out there that are really, really good pilots, and they've been waiting for this for a long time. And they really know how to fly. And so they can put it to you on any round. And so it's much more competitive. Yeah, I would say, next weekend for me is House Mountain, and that's in Tennessee. And I was just talking to Toby about this a few minutes ago before I came. And he goes, how many guys are going to be there? And I'm like, 35. And then the next question is always, how many guys can win it? Well, anyone could win it, if something happened. But I would say there's about 12 guys there that are seriously contenders to win it. So it's going to be a...
Yeah, because that number is not as high for a 3K contest. Usually if it's like a 30-person contest, I would say there's probably 5, 6, 7 people who actually have a shot at taking the podium.
And there's 2 people that pretty much are going to be on the podium, regardless when you get there. There's 2. And unless you're at the big ones like Poway, Velasco. Well, even Velasco is pretty predictable. But in 5J, it's not. There's so many good pilots there. It's like 3 U.S. team pilots are going to be there. Some West Coast guys are going to be there. It's going to be a gunfight. I mean, for sure. It'll be good.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about practice.
Oh,
now
good.
3K and 5J practice. Let's talk 3K first.
Okay.
Since we're predominantly 3K here. Mm-hmm. So weather conditions. What kind of weather do you go out to fly in?
So in the beginning, I was like everybody else. I was like, saw a sunny day, and I didn't know when thermals came. I didn't understand that. So someone told me that plowed fields, that's where you want to look for thermals. And that's for full scale. That's what they look for, plowed fields and some kind of clouds. And so I was like, oh, yeah, they got farm behind my house. And I actually took 2 days off work the first time the farmer plowed his fields because I thought there'll be thermals back there. Oh, my God, I'm going to get these thermals. That's so stupid. But and so I have a lot of land behind my house so I can practice. But so yeah, I thought that. And then I practiced only when it was sunny. And then I would get to contests and it wasn't sunny like it was when I practiced. It was windy, or it was about to rain, or there was a storm coming, or it was really gusty. And somehow, sometime way back, it clicked. And I said, I'm not practicing unless the weather sucks, because I know how to fly in thermals when it's sunny out, and it's light and variable and the clouds are all puffy and it's a beautiful day. Everybody knows how to thermal then. I mean, that's what you've already basically, you've kind of mastered that. I don't know if you've mastered it, but you know how to thermal at this point. And so why would you want to thermal in air that you'll make? And if you are out there practicing in bright, sunny air and the lift is big, don't fly in the thermal. Fly around it. Struggle. Because I think struggling is the number one thing for F3K. I play a game called Chicken with myself. My son and I used to play all the time. And we would throw a plane and we would go downwind. And we wouldn't stop. We would just run downwind till, it was like, you're going to take a long walk if you don't find lift. And I'm long because I have about 1,500 acres behind my house. So we would launch and we would run downwind. And if you found a thermal and you stopped and you started circling up in it and you got up, great, you did it. And the other guy would come in too, but if not, you had to struggle, because struggling you're going to struggle in an F3K contest and an F5J. There's going to be times when there's no lift. You're not going to know what to do, and you're going to have to make do with the altitude that you have and use that time management skills we talked about. How much time can I squeak out of no air? There's just no air to be had. Can I make it back to the field? What do I need to do to get back to the field? Who else is flying that I can poach off their air? But I would say that, I do a lot of struggling. I never fly in the same thermal when I launch. I find a thermal, then I'll leave it and I'll go downwind and I'll try to come back and find it again. Or I'll go upwind and I'll come back and try to find it again. I'll try to get that idea. And what that teaches you is the same thing as when you're standing and that round is just about to start and you feel the thermal come through and it's just drifting off and you're like, okay, I think that thermal is going to be about maybe 100 yards or 50 yards in this direction. And that's what I'm going for. It's the same thing as I know I was in this air and I was lifting. Now my plane's over here and I'm trying to get back to it. Where is that air going to be? And so never flying in the thermal for more than a couple minutes. You know, guys at my club will get in a thermal and they'll come down and they'll be like, how much time did you fly? You know, how long was your flight? I was like, I don't know, 2 minutes. I don't care. You know, because I'm working on specific things. I'm not working on how long I can fly in a thermal. That doesn't mean anything.
Right. So that's kind of the different kind of mentality between a sport pilot and a contest pilot, because for a contest pilot, you know, you go out for very specific, you know, things to practice on.
Right.
And it's not necessarily having, like, we all enjoy flying in a thermal, but for us as competition pilots, we, you know, want to spend our time to improve the skills that would help us do better in a contest. Whereas for sport pilots, you're going to go out there and, you know, just enjoy yourself. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, I would say most of the pilots who fly DLG are sport pilots. There's definitely more people who fly by themselves or with a couple of friends for fun than at contests. And, you know, most of our podcasts at the moment are geared more toward, you know, competition, how to get into competition, what to do, how to improve. But a lot of these things can translate over to sport pilots too, because as you improve, you know, you're going to have a lot more success at finding thermals when you go out to fly for fun, and the fun increases because of that as well. And you're going to be able to do things that you never thought you would be able to do.
Right. You know, back when we started, Thomas, I think you were the same way. A good thoroughbred of a plane, or like the best plane, and I don't know which one that would be, but let's say a Stobel back in the day was one of the best. It was, you know, it was ahead of its time, high launcher, fast mover. It was just a good plane all around. Still probably is to this day. But it wouldn't make 2.5 minutes, no matter who threw it in dead air. Just wouldn't do it. You know, it was probably a 2 minute and 15, 2 minute and 20 second. Maybe there was a couple guys that could squeak out 2.5, but not 3 minutes. And then the snipe came along, and that changed the game, you know, because the snipe could make 3 minutes in dead air. It just could. It would just do it. It would do it easy over and over and over and over. And all of a sudden, everyone's like, uh-oh, you know, this plane has changed. And it really did. And so, but I used to go out and practice where I would throw my plane and say, I make 5 2-minute flights, period. I make 5 2-minute flights with my radio, with a timer on my radio, or I don't go inside the house, no matter how hot it is, no matter how cold it is, 5 2-minute flights. And very rarely did I ever do that. I usually would give up and go inside because I was so frustrated. I'd do like 4, and then I'd throw one and I'd get like 40 seconds. But so, yeah, we used to do that all the time. And then, you know, practicing your turnarounds, your turnarounds. And first, I would say, like, if you're new to it, practice them slow without power. Just practice on managing the plane coming up to you, grabbing it so that the tail, you know, when you whip around, the tail doesn't hit you in the back. That happens. Or you don't strike the ground with your wing and break your wing. So practice them slow and slowly but surely increase power, you know, until you're getting them quicker. But do them safely so that, you know, you don't break your plane, because I've broken so many planes on quick turns. And it's usually the tail. Usually what will happen is the plane will be coming in. You'll reach out for the tail. You'll reach out for the wing. You'll bump the wing. The plane will veer off, and now it's going to skid on the ground and spin the tail, and it breaks the tail off, and you're just frustrated. But
the other part is the wingtip, because sometimes you're trying to do a quick turnaround and you don't hold it properly, and you put too much tension on one side of it and you break a wing. Right. You know, I've done that so many times.
Yeah, that's that snap. And then the other thing is the plane is moving, but you're not. And that's something you have to figure out how to compensate for by your body, your arm, whatever. But the plane is coming in, let's say 5 miles an hour, but you're stationary. So the plane, you catch it, and if you catch it forward of yourself, the nose is going to come around, and you're not going to catch up with the plane wanting to spin around you. And so the timing's all off, and it's a timing thing, and it comes with practice. You just do it more and more and more. Watch some videos of how guys do it. There's some really good ones. June is really, really proficient at throwing. Toby's really good. There's a lot of guys that are really good and done some really good videos. Some of the Swedes are really good at videos of turnarounds. But everybody has their own style. So I would say, don't fall into like, oh, Gavin's the only one that launches it. Awesome. I need to do what he does, because maybe you do it better a different way. So, just practice, doing it with your own style. And next thing you know, you'll be super fast. And, Thomas, you have a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah.
At least you used to before you gained all that weight. But,
still nowhere as heavy as you.
So that's practice for 3K. I would say struggle. I would say go out there. Don't throw your plane high. Throw it low and practice low, working low, because there's going to be so many times in a contest you find yourself in trouble, and you're just in trouble. And it happens to everybody. But, if you learn how to manage yourself and manage being calm while you're flying, like,
that's something you still haven't mastered.
No. So it's bad. My wife's laughing in the background because she knows I get all freaked out. But yeah, just practice being calm. Practice you're going to have bad rounds. And the other thing about 3K is, and I try to tell this to so many people, and I'm bad about it myself, but I'm getting better. I say that the boundary of the field, you leave the last round in that field. You don't take it outside of the field. Because if you have a really bad round and it hurts you and you let it eat at you, the next round's going to be worse. Guaranteed. It's going to be worse. You're going to still have that last round in your head. You're going to go out on the field again, and you're going to have an even worse round. And then it's just
that's much easier said than done. And it's like any professional sport. The mental game, once you hit a certain level, a lot of it is mental, because you're already really good at the mechanics of it, the air reading, the time management, the quick turnarounds. Everything's already there, and the person who wins is who has the better mental game when things get tough.
I agree so much, and so I told myself, as soon as I step over the line off the field, everything that happened in the past is the past, and I can't change it. I can only look towards the future and prepare for the next flight. That sounds really fine, but that's usually not what happens. I usually walk around the front of my truck and kick the bumper, and then
snap a wing.
Right. No, don't do that.
I have some images of certain planes in trash cans.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, there's been some doozies. But that would be advice that I wish I could take myself.
It's very difficult. It's very
leave the bad flights behind you, because there's nothing you can do about them. They're over. So, learn from your mistake and don't do it again, or do it over and over.
That's something that I have to work on, what you talked about, like flying and pushing yourself in difficult air, because that's something I don't push myself enough of. I don't get to fly as much as I used to anymore. So when I go out to fly, I do typically look for nicer conditions to go fly in and kind of enjoy myself. So for myself, it's kind of moved away from very hardcore competition flying to more sporty, just trying to enjoy myself a little bit and de-stress and enjoy flying DLGs. But one of the things that I do practice a lot even now is quick turnarounds and the time management aspect of the quick turnaround. So I would have 30-second countdown on my transmitter, and basically I launch as hard as I can, and then I come down really, really fast. And then, I do a quick turnaround and I go up again. And sometimes I do 2-minute quick turnarounds. Sometimes I do 3-minute turnarounds if I want to do a longer task.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. That's a long. Yeah. That is something I don't do. I don't have the patience to do 2 and 3 minute turnarounds. Like what I'll do is I'll turn around and throw the plane. I'll try to throw the plane, and I practice going somewhere. I know I want to either go straight up and high, or I want to go out and run to somewhere like where a thermal was. Like leave the thermal, come back, do a quick turnaround, and then try to get back to that same thermal, no matter how far away it is, and then struggle.
And that's really helpful in certain tasks, like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5x2. These are tasks that would really benefit from that skill.
And the other thing is, remember when you're I practice by myself because in F3K, I practice by myself. When you practice like that, leaving the thermal, do a quick turnaround, and going back to the thermal, it's a little bit different than a contest situation, because usually in a contest situation, there's going to be planes in the air that are going to give you readings. And so it's much easier at a contest than it is by yourself, because you always get down on yourself, because sometimes you're like, it's just horrible out today. I'm not doing any good. But you don't realize that if everyone else was there, they wouldn't be either. So it's not big. But
it's not really you. It's just, sometimes the conditions are crap.
Get out and get the reps in. Just get out. And the storm's about to come. It's just about to rain. Get your plane out and go throw. And I'm lucky. I can go out in my backyard, so it's real quick to get inside my house when the weather gets bad. But I've gone out full ballast, 20-mile-an-hour winds, throwing up over the houses and trying to slope the houses in my neighborhood, or trying to slope the trees across, or just trying to get back over the field in 25-mile-an-hour winds with full ballast, just to see what it would do, because sooner or later I'm going to have that condition at a contest. And
it's really about understanding the limits of the airframe, the limits of yourself, and how you can push those limits and increase your own flight envelope.
Yeah, great. And here's the deal. If you fly in the wind all the time, and you kind of I like the wind. I love flying in wind. So when you get to a contest and people start whining about it, I'm like, oh, I already got you. I got you beat. They're like, how much ballast do you have in your plane? I'm like, all of it. And they're like, well, how much is all of it? And I'm like, a lot, and guys are pretty secretive about their ballast, but usually they'll tell you the truth. They'll tell you, 50 grams, 80 grams, 100 grams, whatever. Or they'll be
what's your heaviest ballast stick?
160. Okay. 160 grams.
Well, one of the things is when it's windy, and especially if it's turbulent as well, and in the contest you're excited, it's not like launching your plane by yourself at the park when it's nice and sunny. There's a lot of unknown variables that can cause a poor launch, right? You can the adrenaline is there. The wind might be pushing the plane around a little bit. There's lots of broken planes and carnage when the wind is blowing. So you do have to be careful in those situations.
And I build my planes. I have a heavy model. I have you make me a heavy model so that I can stress these planes out and really, really push boundaries on how heavy I can make them and still launch high. The biggest thing about the wind is everyone always thinks that the ballast is for so that you can fly flat and level in the wind. And I use the ballast. I over ballast so that I can move in it, because if there's lift, I want to be able to get to the lift. And if your plane is just heavy enough to barely move through the air, you're not going to be able to travel. And so I use ballast as a means to get to the lift. I know the plane will go up if I get in lift, even with the ballast in it. So I would rather have more ballast and be able to move through the air freely as I want it to, than have less ballast so that I'm lighter wing loaded, but not be able to go anywhere. Because everybody's seen, a light plane in the wind, it's potato.
It doesn't do anything.
Doesn't do anything. Worth. Yep.
So let's expand on ballast a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about ballast and F3K gliders and F5J as well, like fly all up weights. So in F3K, back a few years ago, most planes were about 250, 260 grams.
Right.
And then everyone wanted to go as light as possible. And now you're seeing planes that are around 200 grams, sometimes even lower. But personally, I think we're probably way too light at that point for a DLG, because number one, you can't throw it hard.
Right.
Not only because of structure, but also because there's just no weight for you to throw it. Like you can't put your power behind a ping pong ball versus a golf ball.
That's exactly right.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, some guys seem to be able to throw a lighter plane, and it's all basically rotation. Like I'm a bigger guy, and so I like a weighted plane because I can put my weight against it. It's like a tug of war when you launch. And then I throw lighter planes. I don't throw them as high. So I need some weight in my plane for it to go really high. But lighter planes to me they serve a purpose, but I have more difficulty. It's like that weird sense that you think you have a lighter plane, so you're going to do better, but you never do.
I always think that it's better to over ballast than to under ballast. There's a lot less penalties. If you're not having enough weight in your model, there's a lot of options that are off the table for you. Whereas if you do over ballast, if it's too heavy, add a little bit extra camber. Most of the current wings can support a little extra camber.
Right.
And, maybe you'll lose a few seconds if the air was dead, but you won't be ballasting if the air was that dead anyway.
I've never lost a contest because my plane was too heavy. And I've never won a contest because I had a lightest plane. So those are both true statements. Never, not once.
Is that true in 5J as well? Or do you think in 5J, lighter plane is more important?
Lighter plane is more important in 5J. Yeah, because in 5J, the lighter plane allows you to go to remember, it's all altitude based. We don't have to throw them. The propeller takes them up. So in 5J, if everybody's making it from, let's say, 80 meters, my plane's lighter by considerable amount lighter. I can go to 50 meters, and I just put 10 points on them. If all else is the same. And sometimes it's so tight in these contests that 10 points is all it takes to win, 5 points. I was just at a contest thing in the first 3 rounds, the top guys all had thousands. And it's because they were in the groups, they all had thousands. So to get ahead of them, you either beat them in landing, which is hard in 5J because the landing tapes is a fairly generous amount of space, or you beat them in altitude. So if your plane is lighter and you stay under them on launch, you'll get them a few points at a time. So it's a light plane is very, very, very important. And the lightest you can get that's still legal. I would say if you're competitive in 5J, you ask for the hyper light plane. You ask for the lightest plane. Now, that's going to be fragile, sure, and you're going to have to, accordingly adjust your flying style to this light plane, and then have a medium plane and have a heavy plane if you can afford it. But the light plane is going to be your friend. It really is.
So if you were able to only have one plane in F5J, you would choose the lightest one.
That's correct. Yep.
And in 3K?
I would choose a middleweight or heavy.
Okay.
The middleweight and heavy in 3K for me is because I launch hard and I've broken many planes. And so to me, a plane that I trust and I know is not going to come apart is so much good on my mental. I never have to think about, hey, I'm going to launch this thing with everything. I'm mad. I had a bad round. I'm going to really throw this thing hard. I need to get it way up there because I want to go way downwind. And I know that it's not going to break. Mm-hmm. Now, a super light F3K plane, there's a good chance it's going to break.
Yeah.
And
the thing is, I don't launch anywhere near as high as you. I launch, about 65, 70 meters right now. And I don't even use my light planes much at all. Like in competitions, I might pull it out for if I'm fun flying because it's really fun flying a 200-gram Banff too.
Yeah.
Just the way it floats and hangs, you can't do that with a heavier model. Mm-hmm. But I've never really used that at a competition. I'm always using standards or strongs, and I have ballast in them almost all the time.
Right. My middleweight plane, I would say my middleweight plane is in the 240s, maybe 245. Somewhere that would be considered my light plane. Actually, that's the one I would fly every day in all conditions, and a lot of times it has 25 grams in it. It has a 25-gram lollipop in it, and I run my CG. And when the air gets moving and it's a little bit buoyant, I run my CG like 1 millimeter forward so that the plane pushes, because I like a fast plane. I like it to move. I want to be able to be like, I don't like this air, but I really like that air over there. Let's go and just take off. I know it'll. And when it gets there, it'll climb, no problem.
Yeah, that's kind of what I like to do as well. And like our models, like shameless plug, our models we designed for that as well, right? We want to make sure that number one, it launches very, very high. Because I think that's probably one of the most important aspects of the LG competition. You have to launch high to be able to go far and to hit better thermals.
Number one.
The second, that's very, very important to do well.
Number one thing.
Yeah. And then you would have to have a very good penetration for the model so that number one, you can get to the very far thermals. But in addition to that, you have to be able to come back home safely.
And they all kind of go hand in hand. They all kind of go hand in hand. A high launching plane is also a runner. The reason it launches high is because it's clean.
Well, not necessarily. There are planes that launch very high, but were much floatier, right? For an example, the Flitz 1, that launched really high, and that's very, very floaty.
Yeah, I do like... I've had planes that look like they would launch really high, and for whatever reason, it could just be my launch style. They didn't. But they flew really well, and so I got trapped in that, compensating for not low launch because the plane flew really well. And then, the newer planes, the higher aspect ratio planes came out, and they started really launching good. And then we kind of adjusted how they flew to how they launch, and we never looked back. I mean, it's just new breed of planes. All of them are so good. I rarely have anything bad to say about anyone's new plane. They're just like, wow, that thing looks awesome. Looks like it flies great. It trims well. It comes back. So in every contest, you'll see one or two flights from whoever where they'll be way out and they get home. And you're just like, wow, how did that plane come back from way down there? And it just did it. And then all of a sudden, everyone's like, I got to have one of those. And, it's the miraculous return from nowhere land. But I would say that all the new breed of planes are pretty good. Really good.
Yeah. Now, speaking of that, because I get this question every once in a while as well. Should I buy, my second plane, third plane, the same make and design as my first one? Or should I try out a lot of different models? I would say if you're a competition pilot, always stick to the same design, right? Because you have to know it very, very well in order to do well at a contest. But if you're a sport pilot, I do recommend you to, try out different designs because it's for fun, right? You don't have to squeak out every little bit of performance out of it. Right. And that way you can kind of enjoy how each different model flies and the characteristics that they bring.
Right. That's the fun thing. I agree with you 100%. I couldn't have said anything different. I think that having two of the same plane trimmed exactly the same is much more beneficial to your contest or competition side of it. In sport planes, who cares what you buy? Buy whatever you want. Buy it because you like the wing or you like the paint job or whatever. But I will say at competitions, the good thing about everyone at competitions, like if you come up to me in an event and you're a competent pilot, I mean, you can't just be someone that's never flown before. I know that you're flying and you say, hey man, can I, do you care if I throw your BAMF a couple times? And I'm like, yeah, you want to fly it too? Most guys are going to give you some time on their plane, and it might not be set up the way you like it, but you're going to get a really good idea on how it flies. And you can also watch how they fly it. And some people do not jive with certain planes, and it's a fact of life. You don't like a certain plane for whatever reason. You might not even like its color, and because you don't like its color, you don't fly it very well. It's really weird. It's so funny. And then I have planes that I don't get along with. Like, man, let me tell you, I have planes that I want to fly so bad, and I do not like them at all. But it's been a while since that's happened. But I would say that, ask your buddy, hey man, I know you got that new plane. Do you care? Like, let him launch it and then you fly it around for a while and see what you think. Because everybody can fly a plane, and land it safely. And so don't put it in any danger, and, definitely be responsible. So if something did happen, you would cover the damage or cover the plane if you did something wrong. But that's really rare that would ever happen. But I would say, give planes a whirl, like try it out. If you're a competition pilot, I'd say stick to one brand for at least a season, maybe two, and get. I don't think most pilots,
it really takes a year or two to fully understand each model. It takes time.
I don't think most pilots. I know a lot of pilots that switch planes a lot. They want to have the newest, greatest thing, and they never do well because they never figured out what the plane would do. They never jived with any of them because they didn't have enough time on them. But I think if you give a plane about a year and you practice with it a lot and you buy multiples of that same plane, you build them all the same, you trim them all the same, you practice with them, you're going to see that your ratings and your rankings, your percentage level goes up.
Significantly, yeah, because you have to fly it in a lot of different conditions at different weights, different camber settings, You might want to trim the way it turns differently every once in a while just to, experiment a little bit. And you can't do that when you change the complete variable, the entire model.
Right? No, I agree. Change things small, at a time, and then go out and practice, like the easiest way to practice with a heavy model, because people don't like doing that. They don't like practicing with ballast. That's not fun.
I love it.
I do too, but people don't.
My deviant I fly my deviant a lot, my 1 meter deviant. And
I practice with my 1 meter all the time. You know why I practice? In fact, it's sitting right over there. I practice with my 1 meter all the time because it makes 1 meters make the task relevant again, because 5.2s with a 1 meter sucks. I mean, 3.3s with a 1 meter sucks. It's horrible. It's really hard to do, by yourself in your backyard. Whereas a 1.5 meter, you can pull it off usually pretty easily in good air. But the 1 meter is a challenge because it's smaller, even though the deviant flies so well. But I say practicing with a 1 meter, that's a good idea, but I wouldn't practice with it all the time. I still practice.
No, the launch aspect, there is a lot of difference. The reason I fly it so often is because I fly at a small park nearby my house, or I fly in my backyard and I don't have anywhere near the space that you have in your backyard. But what I meant to say was I fly that with ballast all the time, right? It's usually about 180 grams all up weight with the ballast, sometimes 200, 210. So ballast is really nice. I like it. Once you understand how to use it, and it takes time because it's not something like, installing a throwing blade that I can just show you in 5 minutes on a YouTube video.
Right.
Ballast really takes time for you to really understand and make it suitable for yourself and for your planes, for the conditions that you fly in. It takes years and years to really understand it, but that's part of the fun too.
Yeah. They don't even fly the same. It's not the same plane. Like a BAMP at 240 grams is not the same plane as a BAMP at 300 grams. They're not.
It's more like a missile. It's not a plane at that point.
They're not the same at all. And like the speed changes, the timing changes, everything about the plane changes. And the only way you can learn that is go out and try it. Is go out and just practice. Go out and do it. And
listening about it, reading about it, it doesn't really help you. It gives you an idea, but it's nowhere near the same.
The best way to practice with ballast is leave your other plane at home. Or if you only have one plane, don't take the ballast out. Just fly it with ballast for a week, and just get used to flying it. And then when you take it out and you retrim your plane for flying normal, it'll be a little easier, but you're going to find that like, hey, flying with ballast once I figured it out, it wasn't that bad. Yeah. And you'll be amazed how fast they are. Oh, they're so fast when they have ballast in them. It's fun.
You can cover so much more ground. Like the whole performance envelope of your model just doubles once you put in enough.
Right. Yeah.
You're over here on this side of the sky and you're not climbing out. Someone's over there and they're climbing out. With enough ballast, you can just speed across so fast.
Yeah.
And you'll hit that ballast. You'll hit that thermal and you'll climb.
Yeah, I agree. People are scared of ballast. I hear people all the time like, I don't use ballast, and I'm like, oh, okay, good. Well, I beat you.
Ballasting is important. If that's one thing that we hope to convince you maybe in this episode is practice with ballast.
Just try it. Just try run ballast. And if your plane is a plane that doesn't take ballast, figure out a way to, it's pretty easy to put some fishing sinkers on a piece of wire and crimp them down, figure out a hole, bend the wire. And there's lots and lots of information on our groups about how to put ballast in planes. But it doesn't take much, maybe start out with 30 grams and get comfortable with that, and then go to 50. And then, so my ballast, I have a lot of them, but I would say like a good starting place would be like, have like between a 25 and a 35 gram stick. And then I would jump right to like a 55 to 65 gram stick. And then from there, it's like throw the kitchen sink in it. You might as well put an 80.
So you don't have a lot of sticks then? You just have a couple?
No, I have a lot of sticks. I have 22. I have the full set for the BAMPs that you sent me. But
right, okay.
I have two in between. I fly with an 88 a lot, and 88 is pretty much my go-to when the wind gets around 10. I put 88 in. And then I have a 140, the big 140. And then I've never put the big 160 in it. It's scary. It's scary. But
well, the thing is with the BAMF, you don't really need that either. I don't think. I mean, I fly sometimes in as I said, like I fly in my local school field quite often, and it does get windy. And when it gets windy, it is very, very turbulent because I'm in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
And with my
Which
BAM
is good.
2, sorry?
Flying in turbulence, that's good. Flying in turbulence is great.
I hate it. I don't fly in those conditions nearly as enough.
But you should.
But I should. I know I should. Mm-hmm. But what I should do and what I do is two very different things.
Right. It's true. You should fly 5J. You should come and fly 5J with us.
I should build my 5J model. It's been sitting here for a year and a half.
Oh, come to the Nats and fly 5J, or come somewhere.
Hey, actually, I might be able to come to the Nats because I think the borders are opening up end of this month. Yeah, and then my second shot is going to be either end of July or early August. So I think Nats is third week, right?
Yeah, third week of August.
Yeah, I'm going to come to the Nationals, U.S. Nationals, and I'm going to beat you in both 5J and 3K. And it'll be my first 5J contest.
You heard it here first.
It's going to look so bad if I don't show up.
We'll make Gavin podcast number 3. How did Thomas fail? But yeah, it'll be the Nats is pretty good because you could fly the Nats, the U.S. Nationals for all the out of town country. It's like 10 straight days of soaring. There's F3 RES, and then there's 5J, 3K, ALES, TD, cross country, F3J, and then there's Nostalgia, 2 meter, and RES.
These are all sailplane events.
All sailplane events, yeah. I think it's like 10 or something. A lot of events.
Where is the Nats, for those who don't know?
Muncie, Indiana. It's at the Academy of Model Aeronautics location. That's their headquarters. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how big it is, but let's say you can't see from one end to the other end, and you can have an F3J, an F5J, an F3K, and rockets and free flight competition all going on at the same time and barely see each other. It's huge. It's it's probably 1.25 miles across by another 1 mile or 2 across. It's huge. And
for those who have never been there, like me,
mm-hmm.
Can you describe the Nationals a little bit? Is it like a cutthroat event where only the top pilots should go to, or is everyone welcome?
No. Everybody's welcome. People fly the Nationals, and that's the only event they fly all year. They come one for one time a year, and they'll fly different events. I try to fly for the whole week because it's just fun. Mm-hmm. But and I don't do well in all the events, but I just fly them all because it's fun. And then it's just it's laid back, really good atmosphere. You know, guys that you haven't seen. Guys come from all over the United States to fly in it. Guys come from Canada to fly in it. Maybe you'll come from Canada. You know, Doug Pike. Doug Pike comes. Mm-hmm.
And I think Ethan won the 3K Nationals.
I don't want to talk about it.
Canadian won the U.S. Nationals.
Yeah, Ethan won the U.S. Nationals. I think not last year, 3 years ago. 3 years ago.
3 years, yeah.
Yeah. He won the U.S. Nationals. So, yeah, it's fun. It's a good time. The fields are so big in F3K, there is no tree line to get to. The tree line is there. It's just half a mile away. And if you got there, you'd never get home.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's this wide open grass field for as far as the eye can see.
Well, I'm going to mark it in my calendars. I hope everything works out and the stars align because I want to go out there and kick your ass.
Yeah, that sounds even better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it won't be the first time I beat you. So, I mean, it's nothing special.
We should bet on it. See if you can get Nick to come over too. Can you imagine Nick at the U.S. Nationals?
Probably not this year. Hopefully next year. Yeah. Traveling right now out of China is still very, very difficult.
Nick doesn't like camping either. And we all camp at the Nationals.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's fun because they have a camping site and it has power and everything. So we just all tent camp and cook out. And so it's a big party every night. And
so you're going to smell like crap by the end of...
No, there's showers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's showers and everything. Yeah, come on.
Civilized. We're civilized.
Yeah, you sleep in a tent, a sweaty bag, and take a shower every night. But yeah, if you come, we'll make sure you're set.
I'm excited. Gavin, it's been awesome, having you on our show again. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss our future episodes. See you next time.
Yeah, and if you guys have any more questions, hit Thomas up, and Thomas will ask somebody.
Leave them in the comments.
Yeah. Maybe me. Ask a question, and I'll look at the comments and answer. Or maybe he'll ask the next pilot. There's a lot of good pilots out there that need to be talked.
We have a lot of people lined up for the podcast, so someone will answer them.
Right, incorrectly, probably. All right, peace out.
Cheers, man.